The reason I got interested in health in the first place, first of all, when I was a kid, very young, my parents were smokers. I was very young, maybe. I remember I was 4 or 5 years old or something like this. And the moment my mother would light a cigarette up, I'd have an anxiety attack. Kind of exaggerating, but I felt anxious. That would be fair to say. And we lived in Saudi Arabia at some point. So maybe I was 5, 6 years old, and I kind of like try to make a deal with her. I said, all right, every time you smoke a cigarette, you're going to give me $5. So she kind of humored me for 5 seconds, but then she didn't give me the $5. But that's just, that was already in me. Now when I look back, I understand because I'm myself, you are always yourself, so it kind of makes sense. But at the time, my mom found that particular, because they're not particularly quote unquote health oriented. There are people from the Middle East that the culture of health is fairly new, like we see today in the world where people take care of their health. This is a new phenomenon. Back in the 70s, early 80s, this was barely beginning, especially. Anyways, the point is this: I've always had a certain kind of sensitivity to, dare I say the word health, but more, it's more people and a sense of what they're doing and how it's affecting them. So as I started to grow up, I started having some health issues. Nothing extremely tragic, but I remember I had some skin issues, so I'd go to the doctor and they gave me some skin stuff and it didn't work, and I felt self-conscious about it as a little boy growing up. It would never leave. Then I had eye problems, meaning myopia. Is that how you say it in English? Myopic, anyways, you can't see far. So this is normal to not see far, but it's not. It's just, we're accustomed to it today, but it's not. There's a problem. But when you want to fix the problem, what do you do today? You go to the person who pretends that they're an eye doctor and they give you spectacles that don't fix your issue. They just can kind of adjust the way that light is reflected in your eyes. So they don't solve your problem, but for me it's traumatic because you go from seeing, and apparently now I don't see, and then they give me this little shit that I got to put on my face, and it really affected me. I remember it. I'll never forget it. I remember when I had my eye exam for the first time. We were in Saudi Arabia. I remember the lady, she had the nurse who had like, I don't know if she was a nurse, but she had a particular kind of hairdo. I remember the atmosphere, because that was going to be a turning point in my life. So sometimes when you have turning points, it's like it puts an imprint. So anyways, so I had some health issues, and then as I started to grow up a little more, I had pains in my knees and in my body as an adolescent, as a young athlete, aches and pains everywhere, but that really bothered me. Like I would run, and I was a sprinter, and I loved sprinting, and then I'd have knee aches, and I was fucking annoyed, man. My knees are hurting. So, and I didn't understand, they call that, I don't know, there's an expression when you have your knees hurt because you grow too fast, which is a load of shit. As an osteopath, I know this. It's like, no, this is not normal, but nobody had any solutions. Then as I started because I became a bodybuilder, at some point in my teens, intensively with the diet and 200 grams of proteins like a psychopath. So obviously I had acid reflux and acidity, and that comes with all kinds of symptoms and pains, which I didn't understand. So I'd go see the doctor, and the doctor would be like, I don't know what's going on with you. Anyways, all kinds of, nothing extreme, but enough for me to say something's funny, and I don't know what's going on. Anyways, when I got to, at some point I shifted my lifestyle. I spoke about it in earlier videos where I'm not going to go over it right now, but you would say I went spiritual. I started to put my attention on living clean, mentally clean. My life is clean, my behavior is clean, cleaner at least. And one of the first things that my teacher told me is like, you're going to cut the meat. I used to eat meat like a champion, Mickey D's, pepper steak, you know the deal, man. Just like shit. Not that the pepper steak is shit, but just junk food and meat and more meat and chicken and fish and Mickey D's and whatever the fuck I could eat. I loved it. I loved my steak. So my teacher told me that, and I was very like, what do you mean I'm not going to eat meat? What does that mean? I got a freezer full of meat. But it was the first time that the concept of vegetarianism came to me. This is the late 90s. This is not like today where veganism is a fad. And you can pick up a girl by telling her, hey, you know what? I'm a vegan. Oh, right. This is a different time, right? So this is not because I'm telling you that you should be a vegetarian. It's just to say that it's a philosophy of health, if we can call it like this. There's definitely truth to it. We'll discuss it at another point in time. This is not me selling you vegetarianism. I think it's clear. But that came to me, so I started looking into it, trying to discover why this teacher told me to eat like this. So of course they came and they had all their philosophy spiritually. This is what it does because eating meat is karmically evil. And I'm kind of like exaggerating. And then I started to like put more and more of my attention on these subjects. I'm going to skip a little bit. And at some point in my university career, I decided that I was going to be a nurse. Yeah, imagine. Because I didn't know what the fuck to do with myself. I didn't know where I fit in. This is a whole conversation to itself. And as I was in university studying in nursing, I got my job as an orderly, which is technically the right hand of the nurse. You do everything. You clean the fucking patient, you wipe their shit, change the diapers, feed them, bathe them, move them, because some people can't move right. And God bless all the orderlies in the world, because it's a very humbling job. So at that stage, my mind was already sobering up. I had no drugs in my life, no alcohol in my life. I wasn't partying. I wasn't overly masturbating. Of course, I had a habit, but nothing compared to before. So my mind was starting to sober up. And the visit at the hospital was a turning point for me. Now, I write this in my book. It's in chapter 1. And I was speaking about, I always kind of come back to it because it's like a moment. It's initiatic. So in the same way as our homeboy, the Buddha, at some point got initiated when he went out of his little comfort zone, his palace where everything is perfect, and he went into the world and started to realize people grow old, get disease, and die. This is part of life. That kind of struck me. I already knew this because I told you I had a sensitivity to it. But now I'm in it. And that's why I took the job. That's why I went into nursing. I didn't go into nursing because I wanted to be a nurse and have a career. No, I wanted to be hands-on in the real. That's what I was interested in. And at the time, there's no way in hell I'm going to be a stupid-ass doctor. So I said, at least I'm going to be that's right, that's what I said, a stupid-ass doctor. I said, I'm going to be a nurse, at least I'm helping people, and it's a real experience. It's real. It's as real as it gets, at least from one point of view. So there I was. And at the time, I was meditating 4 or 5 hours a day. So that means in my breaks, I would go to the chapel, meditate some more. I'm telling you, I was particularly lucid. It was a very particular time in my life. It was initiatic. And my job was to, deal with the sick. And I wasn't like the persona of the doctor, right? You're an orderly. You're technically you're shit. You're at the lowest rung of the corporate or the hierarchy of the hospital universe. So I'm not walking around like I'm the man. I'm clearly not the man. I'm the one that wipes people's shit. So I'm not in that trip, and I don't really care about nursing. I'm there, whatever it is. I'm kind of like finding my pathway. In fact, I dropped out of nursing school after that summer because it's not for me, obviously. Then I found something else to do, which is another conversation. So I wasn't in that trip, that ego trip that you find a lot of people in the health world in. That's their career. They're trying to be somebody. I'm not. So I'm like Little Prince at the hospital world. So I got that innocence mind on. I'm just like witnessing something that is very special to see, that you very seldom get to see. And when you find yourself in a hospital because somebody loves at the hospital, generally you're kind of anxious, and it's the last place you want to be. And you go in, you kind of do your things, and you want to leave. But imagine you don't have nobody that you love is at the hospital, and you're just there. So you like literally just get to witness the business of health. You get to witness the hierarchy. You get to see the patients. You get to listen, and you got a person. So that's why I spoke about vegetarianism. So at the time I was a vegetarian. Not that I'm not a vegetarian today, or that I am, or I'm not. Doesn't matter. Again, because I don't want to talk about vegetarianism because I don't want you to like trip, right? So, but anyways, at that time I was 100% vegetarian. It was like pro-vegetarian. And I was studying vegetarianism. It's not about vegetarianism, it's about diet, what creates, like there's an alternative movement that talks about nutrition, the effects of nutrition. You start to go into the physiology of things that they'll never teach you in medical school. In fact, they barely have nutrition class in medical school. So I was starting to wake up to this. I'm like, so I'm taking care of a patient who's just recovering from a stroke, and my job is to feed that person. You understand? So I'm like coming out, and I'm looking at the plate. Now you don't have to be very smart to understand that this is shit. And I gotta feed you, so I'm like, I ain't giving you that, dude. I'm like, no, you see, you can't eat, so I'm giving you, you're going to have the potatoes, because that's all there is on the plate, and you're going to have them little peas and carrots. This is a little greasy thing. Nah, you're not having this. Right? So this is kind of like a joke, but it's like now you get to, I'm mashing up a lot of things at the same time. So I was studying both what health is, alternative health, healing, but also at the same time witnessing disease, witnessing the byproduct of our society and what it generates. Well, what it generates is suffering, disease, and death. Now, this is the norm. Very few people think about this. Very few people question this. Very few people want to have a conversation about this. And when they do, it's always with some kind of scientific hat like a moron, trying to disconnect from the actual experience that, well, something's funny. People are suffering. I'm not just talking about like they're suffering. They have disease. They're suffering mentally. They're suffering emotionally. They're suffering from a scarcity of energy. And then they have a fucking disease. And the disease are so horrendously, it's disgusting. It's horrible. Like, this is not to disrespect the people, but it's like the disease process is so, it's something to see. It's really something to see. And I saw people all kinds of ages. I saw people who are like, I don't know, 18, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. I'll never forget that dude who, this old dude who's like in, I think it was 96, 7. And he had broken a bone, right? So it's like, this is like a virile 97-year-old. And he was upset because he broke his bone. And he told me, I'm upset. I'm like, why? It's because I'm not going to be able to ski with my girlfriend. I'm like, your girlfriend? This dude is like 97. So I asked him, like, dude, are you banging her? Yeah, she's young, he told me. I'm like, young? He's like, yeah, she's like 82. He's not talking like this, but, he's a white dude, stern and just like serious. Like, yes, of course I have sex. I'm like, dude, you're 97. Who fucking bangs at 97? He was. Anyways, all this to say, all kinds of people, all kinds of ages, all kinds of circumstances, all kinds of socioeconomic situations. It's something to see. I got the chance to, like, it's really something. You wipe somebody's shit. Like, a person is sick, they can't shit. They have a diaper. This is not like a 1-year-old. This is a grown-up. And sometimes they're not there. Sometimes they're demented. And sometimes they're 100% lucid. It's like me and you. But they now, something hit them. They had a stroke. Half of their body is paralyzed. Or they just came out of surgery and they're just like in tubes. And it's something to see. So for me, that was initiatic. And I can talk about it for hours. I'll spare you. But here's the catch. This is what I take. One sentence in my brain. This is what it said. There's no way in fucking hell this is going to happen to me. This is what the moral of all my experience is summed up in, there is no way in hell that this is going to happen to me. Second sentence, if we just unpack the first one, what the fuck is going on? Third sentence, if we unpack it even more, how come ain't nobody saying what the fuck is going on? Fourth sentence, if we unpack it, there has to be some kind of alternative to this, because this makes absolutely no sense. So all of this can be mashed up in one thing. There's no way in fucking hell I'm going to go through this. And at the time, because I was a zealous young man, I said there's no way that this is going to happen to my parents. I had to save them because I love those people that I love and I don't want them to go through such ordeal. Then I discovered that this is not how it works. You can't change people. They are what they are. They have their own path. But I did try. I failed, but I did try. So nobody can tell me I didn't try. So that was the summary of that was like the pinnacle. And from that point on already I'd been a bodybuilder, so people can call that health. I'm like, no, that's got nothing to do with health, right? So I was an athlete when I was in my teens, so you can call that healthy. I'm like, I ain't got nothing to do with health. That's a physical activity. Physical activity has healthy benefits, of course, non-negotiable. We can have a conversation about that. No, health is, what is disease? Where does it come from? What's the root of it? How does that work? Is the body just making, because modern science, what does modern science tell you about disease? Something in your body has gone wrong. And it's turning against you. Your own body is turning against you. And it's killing you. This is literally what they're telling you. I'm making it a little Hollywood. But that's what they're telling you. So imagine, this is what they're teaching you since you're a kid. Your body is stupid. Shit happens. Your cells going to flip. and then it's going to eat you. So we don't consider this. Your average person doesn't consider this. Very few people consider this. Even as people in so-called alternative science or alternative medicine also don't think of that. Because I've studied a whole lot. I spent 20 years studying alternative medicine in every branch. We'll talk about it another time. And it's the same paradigm. They think the same way. They just approach it from a natural perspective. Instead of giving you white drugs, in other words, some chemical in a capsule, they give you a pseudo-green drug, which has grown somewhere. But the mentality is the same. They're trying to address a symptom, but their way of understanding is a little different. But it's the same. We'll unpack this later. So anyways, all this to say, witnessing all of that really had an effect on me. And I said, there must be something else that exists. I cannot live in fear like this. And that's the truth. I'm scared. I've always been afraid. I was afraid for my mom when I was a kid. That's an underlying fear. It's a fear that's everywhere. I spoke in previous videos, my initiation into violence when I got jumped by 6 dudes in South Africa, which initiated me to violence. And that kind of like, I had a sense of it, but not until I got jumped by 6 people and I realized to which extent I'm feeble. What's the word? Innocent. Powerless. I didn't like the sensation. I said, I got to do something for myself. So, but the underlying powerlessness is always there, but you live in a society that gives you the illusion that everything's going to be all right. You understand? So the same goes for health. You live in a society that gives you the illusion that everything's going to be all right. But it's not. So that the hospital experience it was like getting jumped by the 6 rude boys who stole my shit. It was an initiation. And that underlying fear that's always there and that is in everybody came to the surface and said, I'm not going to live like this. I got to find a solution. Because what kind of life are you living pretending that this is not around the corner? And then let us say that something happens to you. What the fuck do you do then? How do you deal with yourself? How do you deal with your body? Where does it come from? There's got to be an answer. And what I found what modern science was presenting me made no sense. I'm like, this is total nonsense. You're trying to explain to me why I'm suffering by telling me that some invisible thing somewhere in the middle of nowhere in infinite quantum physics realm is doing this, so now I suffer? And that is not an explanation. That's a circle of bullshit. Why do you have cancer? Because by redefining cancer, by telling you cancer at a micro level, they told you where cancer comes from? That's not an answer. That's total fucking nonsense. Now, I can appreciate the brilliance of it, but it doesn't solve my problem. And it doesn't solve yours either. So, anyways, if it floats your boat, enjoy. It didn't float mine, so I decided to go on a hunt and try to find answers for myself. And we can say that this is how my journey into health took off. Because it was always there. So I'm going to stress something again. Like I said about violence, it's everywhere. It's in everybody. And our Western society gives us the illusion that we are safe. At least those of us who live in well-to-do environments. Well, the underlying fear of disease, suffering, and death is in everybody. And notice, disease, suffering, and death is one big thing. It's this. They're undivisible, really. When you suffer, you're afraid that your suffering is going to become a permanent disease. That means it's never going to leave and it's going to break you apart and you're going to die. They're interlinked in a very profound way. So that fear is underlying and it's everybody. And I am not talking about it from an existential point of view, which we've covered in previous videos. I'm talking about like concretely. You got a knee pain and the pain is like, what happens if it never leaves? And then you start there's an anxiety that arises. We're talking about practical stuff. I have a pain somewhere in my head. What's that? Why is it hurting? It's sharp. What happens if it never leaves? What happens if something exploded in my brain and I become like Superman? Christopher Reeves, right? Who the fuck knows? You don't know. Nobody knows. And your environment doesn't really know. And when you go speak to the doctor, they come with their like robotic blah, 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 blah. Okay. The police officer makes it feel safe for me. It don't change nothing that somebody's coming after you and you don't know how to protect yourself. So in the same way, there's a disease, quote unquote, waiting for you and you don't know how to protect yourself and the doctor ain't not going to do fuck all for you. And that's what you have to understand. Once you find yourself at the hospital, it's already too late. It's over. Whatever happened. Now the symptoms exploding for whatever reason, and you don't know why it's happened. You don't know where it came from. Now it's clearly acute. Shit's happening, and you need some kind of emergency intervention. And that's where modern medicine specializes in. Like you got a broken something. Even that's a sketchy conversation. Let's not get into that. But let's pretend that this is what they specialize in, and kind of, sort of. So for me, this doesn't work. I'm like, how can I live like this? How can I live like this if health is the very foundation of my life? So ask any old person what's important in life, and you know exactly what the old person is saying. It's your health and your loved ones. Be useful. And health is the most important thing. Everybody knows that. Yet, what do you really know about health? Dare I say, very little. And of course, now you may be confused. You think that going to the gym is health. You think that running is healthy. I'm like, nah. These are very shallow exercises or practices that somehow help you. I agreed. But that's got nothing to do with the cancer that's developing deep in the tissues. It ain't got nothing to do with that. Well, that's it. The science tells you that you need to eat these minerals, and if you eat this, now the cancer, and all you gotta do is have wheatgrass every day, twice a day, and as the Hippocrates Institute, anyways, so that's kind of how I took the plunge.